So all living things rely on diffusion to stay alive. They use it for what? Number one, getting raw material for respiration, removing waste products during respiration. Plants use it for photosynthesis, and it's also important for the absorption of digested food. So let me explain about diffusion and breathing. And you know very well about the breathing. Breathing is the mechanism of inhaling and exhaling the air. When we inhale the air, and we need oxygen gas, and that oxygen gas is diffused through the lungs into the bloodstream, and then it's transported throughout the body. And carbon dioxide gas, it's a waste gas which is produced during respiration, and it's diffused into the bloodstream from tissues and exhaled out of body via lungs. So it's our respiratory system, which consists of lungs, balloon. When we inhale the air, and then that air is passed through the lungs, and from the lungs that oxygen gas will be diffused into the blood, and carbon dioxide gas will be diffused outside the bloodstream into the lungs, and from here we exhale the air. So how there will be the gaseous exchange of the gases in the lungs at the alveoli level. These alveoli basically are the cluster of air sacs. It looks like a bunch of grapes where there will be gaseous exchange takes place. And how the gases are diffused here, you can see that there are blue colored cells which shows the red blood cells, and then there are red colored cells, red blood cells. In the previous lesson I have discussed about the structure and function of the red blood cells, that red blood cells carry the oxygen gas and transport the oxygen gas from one place to the other place. So how that oxygen gas is transported from one place to the other place? So first thing is that how that oxygen gas is diffused from the air sacs into the bloodstream by diffusion. Because in the blood there will be a deficiency of oxygen gas, and in the air sacs, when we inhale the air, there will be efficiency of oxygen. There will be higher concentration of oxygen gas. Then ultimately that oxygen gas will be diffused into the blood, and you can see that the blue color red blood cells are turned into red blood cells just because of the oxygen gas. And carbon dioxide gas, it will move out, it will diffuse out of the bloodstream into the lungs, and just because of the concentration gradient. Because in the blood vessel there will be higher concentration of carbon dioxide gas, and in the air sac there will be lower concentration of carbon dioxide gas. So through diffusion, that carbon dioxide gas will be diffused out of the bloodstream. So these are the characteristics which makes the gaseous exchange very efficient in the alveoli, because these are very thin. In the previous slide I have discussed that the cell membrane should be thin, and thickness of barrier, I have discussed about that factor. So cell membrane of the alveoli is 1 cell thick, so that's why there will be a high rate of diffusion of gases, and they are covered by a network of fine capillaries enabling gases to pass almost directly between the lungs and bloodstream. So this network of fine capillaries basically it enhances the short the distance, and it also increases the surface area. They are moist, encouraging gas molecules to easily dissolve, and they have a large combined surface area, allowing large amount of gases to be exchanged with each. Because in the previous lesson we have discussed that how oxygen gas is transported, because after diffusion that oxygen gas will make a bonding with hemoglobin, and after that where there will be a need of the oxygen gas and where there will be a lower concentration of oxygen gas, then ultimately that oxygen gas will be diffused outside the bloodstream, and it will pass over to the tissues. So it's a whole concept map of the respiration and diffusion, that how oxygen gas will be diffused into the blood, and then that blood rich in oxygen will be transported to the blood supply, and where there will be a lower concentration of oxygen, then oxygen gas will be diffused outside the blood vessel, and from the blood from the tissues, and the body cells where there will be a higher concentration of carbon dioxide gas, that carbon dioxide gas will be diffused into the bloodstream. Then that blood which is rich in carbon dioxide gas will be transported to the lungs, where it will be diffused outside the bloodstream, and it will pass over to the air sacs, from where it will exhaled outside the body. So it's a whole pathway of the and whole concept of gaseous exchange, which is only and only possible through diffusion. Next very important role of this process in the absorption and assimilation, that when we take the food, then that food will be digested, and you know that during digestion larger molecules of the macromolecules will be converted into smaller molecules. And why is it so? Because the smaller molecules can easily diffused into the bloodstream as compared to larger molecules, and smaller molecules also enhance the surface area. So this one also, and this villi structure, basically that one is a part of small intestine. From small intestine, food will be absorbed into bloodstream, and this finger-like structure, it also consists of a membrane which is only and only one cell thick. Mainly it creates a short distance, and there is a constant flow of the blood. So basically it also create a concentration gradient. Steep concentration gradient mean that there will be a high difference between the concentration at two areas. So through this concentration gradient, more molecules will be diffused into the bloodstream. Shows the that at one side there is a high water vapor content, and in the environment there is a low water vapor content. So through this, water will be evaporated from the plant body into the environment, and that process basically is known as transpiration, and it's very important for the photosynthesis, because transpiration enhances the movement of the water from roots to the leaf, where it's also utilized for the photosynthesis. And in the second black arrow, which is showing the direction of entry inside the plant cells, and you can see that in the environment there is a higher concentration of carbon dioxide gas, and in the inner side there is a lower concentration of carbon dioxide gas. So why there is a lower concentration of carbon dioxide gas? Because carbon dioxide gas is utilized in the photosynthesis, so that's why there will be lower concentration of carbon dioxide gas. And it basically only and only occurring at the daytime, because during the daytime there is a process which is going on, it's a photosynthesis. So during photosynthesis there will be a need of more carbon dioxide gas, and that carbon dioxide gas from the environment will be diffused inside the plant cells, inside this leaf. But at the night time, when there will be no photosynthesis, then ultimately there will be only and only one process, which is known as respiration. So at night time, what will happen? At night time, inside the leaf cells, ultimately there will be higher concentration of carbon dioxide gas as compared to environment. So carbon dioxide gas will be diffused outside the plant cells. So diffusion is also useful in the plant. Next, it's also important in unicellular organisms like amoeba. So how these organisms get their food, how these organisms how these organisms get the oxygen gas and get rid of carbon dioxide gas. So diffusion is also very helpful in unicellular organisms for the gaseous exchange, in which oxygen gas will be diffused into the amoeba cell, like it's only made up of single cell, and carbon dioxide gas will move outside the cells, where there will be a lower concentration of carbon dioxide gas. Now the next topic, which is osmosis, is a process in which the water molecules move from an area of higher concentration of water to an area of lower concentration of water. Osmosis, basically it's also a special type of diffusion. In diffusion, I've explained that there is a movement of the molecules like solid, liquid or gases. This can move from one place to the other place, and there is no utilization of energy. But osmosis typically refers to the movement of water. In this topic, only and only we will discuss with the reference of the movement of water molecules. And water molecules move from an area of higher concentration to lower concentration, from higher water potential to lower water potential. And in this picture you can see that at one side there is a higher concentration of water molecules, and at the other side there is a lower concentration of water molecules. But in diffusion there is may or may not need of partially permeable membrane, but in osmosis there is a need of partially permeable membrane. There is a partially permeable membrane, selectively permeable membrane, or differentially permeable membrane, which allow certain molecules to pass through it. So lesson is over. Now it's a recap of main points. Number 1, diffusion. It's the movement of molecules from a region of higher concentration to region of lower concentration, and it's a passive transport. And how the rate of diffusion will be affected by different factors. We have discussed about the state of matter, like diffusion will be slow in solid, faster in liquid, and faster in gases. And smaller molecules definitely affect the rate of diffusion. It will increase the rate of diffusion. Concentration gradient also affects the temperature. If there will be more kinetic energy, there will be a high rate of diffusion. Then we have discussed that why diffusion is important, and it ensures the constant supply of oxygen to the living organisms and the removal of the carbon dioxide gas from the living organisms during respiration. And it's also important that carbon dioxide gas is used in photosynthesis, and it also helps in the diffusion of the minerals salts from the soil into the roots, and it also enables animals to detect food by smell. And it also ensures that digested food diffuses into blood through the walls of small intestine. And at the end, we just define osmosis, that the movement osmosis typically refers to the movement of water molecules from a region of higher concentration of water to a region of lower concentration of water, and especially through partially permeable membrane. Hope so girls, concept will be clear. Thank you.